Hey gang, welcome back to Sketch a Day. I'm Spencer, where every day I give you something new and interesting about how to sketch, draw, and see the world around you. And last time we used ballpoint pen and marker paper to sketch up a printer. And what I'd like to do today, by popular request, popular demand, is use my iPad Pro, which I have with me here. And I'm going to use this to go ahead and add some tone and shade to the printer. I'm going to keep it really quick, really simple. I think this is one of the great things about digital tools is you're able to kind of blend the analog and digital and create some really cool things. So let's get right into it. I'll be using Procreate app for iPad and iPad Pro. It's about $5.99 in the App Store. You can pick that up, really affordable. If not, you can use pencils to follow along. You could also break it on airbrush if you have that. So don't feel like you can't follow along if you don't have the same tool that I have here today. So like I said, I'm using Procreate. I've created a standard sized canvas here. And what I'm going to do now is hit the little wrench in the top corner, hit import image, take a photo. So now the camera is activated and it looks like my hand is covering the camera. Oh, that hand. Okay. So there's my sketch that we did last time. And I'm going to just take a quick picture. Alright, boom. So now I have a picture. I can hit use photo and that just drops right into my iPad. I can scale it up, modify, adjust, what have you. So I'm going to adjust the hue, saturation, brightness. I'm going to up the brightness. Here, knock the saturation down, for example. I don't want to change the hue, just saturation and brightness. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. Okay, and let's jump back to our filters here, and I want to, okay, let's jump back to our layers. So I'm going to make a new layer. On this layer, which is the printer sketch layer, I'm actually going to select multiply for my blending mode. So now that little icon right there is now an M, which means multiply. I can tap this, drag it up, and I'm going to do a little bit of editing on this layer, and I'm going to erase some of the background. And that's because the background is a little bit gray, and I want to take some of that gray out. There is a little easier way to do this in Photoshop, and there might be, frankly, a way to do it better in Procreate, but I'm just going to do this quick and dirty method for now. Get rid of most of this. Until I have my printer. If I want to kind of feather the background as I'm erasing, I can use my soft airbrush as an eraser, for example, so that the gray is there, but it's not really impacting the overall sketch so much. So now, on this layer below, in my brush toolkit here, I have this soft airbrush, and I'm going to use this to apply some tone. So, for example, I've got this rounded edge on the front of my printer, and I want to show that I have a nice shadow core. So, on this layer that's below, so just to show you the organization, that's all happening on this layer, layer 2, and that's where I'm going to be applying the tone to make this seem more three-dimensional. But already you can see, just by adding that gray, it really is starting to make this printer feel a lot more 3D. So I could do things like, on this layer, use my round brush with a diminished opacity, and to make it small, because I want to just take out some of this line here. And now I can paint in just a little bit of a round on that edge, for example. And now that's starting to feel a lot more 3D. If I want to, looks like I shaded on the wrong layer, but I'm going to leave it. If I want to kind of color block this in, I made a new layer, and I'm just going to color block in just a little gray section here on the printer. So with my nice big round brush, let's make it big, and up the opacity, and just quickly color block this part of the printer in. By color block, I mean just adding some value to this section. Cool thing about the iPad Pro is it's light, so I can either rotate the canvas or just rotate the iPad, but either way it's sixes to me, so it doesn't make that big a difference which route I go. Alright, so now that I've color blocked that in, on a new layer, I'm going to color block in, let's do this orange. And one of the cool things that I like about this process is I can be selective about where I want to add my color, meaning I don't have to render this whole thing. I can show form overall, but then if I want to just call out a detail or show something, that's easy enough by adding color in the foreground of the actual sketch. Let's knock the opacity back just a little bit on that section, and now I'm going to take my soft, airbrush, nice and big, okay, that's pretty big, and I'm just going to hit, this is all on a new layer, just going to kind of hit this top corner, and basically just fade and feather that in. So now I can take my eraser here and start to create some contrast. Contrast in your sketches is what's going to show three-dimensionality as you draw, or rather, it's one of the more compelling things that you can do as you sketch. So when you contrast a light tone against a dark tone, case in point, the top surface, which is receiving more light than the far surface, now it feels like this is a three-dimensional scene. So with my soft airbrush, I'm going to soften up this boundary just a little bit here. Okay, and let's actually feather out this rendering as well. So soft airbrush, and by feather I mean I'm going to take this gray tone that I've kind of created here and just apply it across the front just a little bit, like so. And that's going to just kind of help this feel a little bit more like it has some emotion in the rendering, okay? On this side, let's erase what I've added. Oops, should have done it on a separate layer. I always do that. Okay, so new layer, and I just want to paint in some dark tone here, and then erase some of that. Now, someone did tell me in Procreate, I'm used to the workflow now, but someone did tell me that you can actually set it so that your finger functions as an eraser. I do like the precision of the pencil, however, so if you're wondering, that's why I've kind of stuck with just switching between the tools as I use them. Okay, so slight adjustment in opacity there. And now you can see this is really starting to come alive. And so far I've only used darks, but I can also paint with some lights. So here, if I want to further enhance the contrast, I can place some white right on the top. So now that this feels like it really is receiving more light than the rest of my drawing. On this surface, I can do the same thing. So just on the top surface right here, a little bit more light, for example. But there are other things you can do that we weren't able to do rather on paper, like we can add a quick shadow. To this. And sometimes I like to just extend the shadow of my drawing, not worry too much about calculating exactly what it is and where it goes. Partly to just save myself some time, but I think it's more just a stylistic thing that I like to do. And then what I'm doing here is I'm just blacking in and blocking in some areas that would have some more shadowing. And I can take this layer, for example, and now adjust the opacity and perhaps erase and clean up just a little bit of some of those areas. But you can see, you still get the effect of, hey, this is casting a shadow or that's dark. If I go back to this layer, I actually want to move this layer all the way back so that it's easier for it to be clean. And now I'm going to use some white and my little stencil here. Make sure we're on a layer above everything else. Okay, just hit these edges. So this works really well where you have some nice dark tone. Okay, so in these dark areas you can really see that these things are starting to pop out almost like they're surfaces and three-dimensional. Okay, and I'm applying some white where there would be two edges meeting together, and one of those edges that's closer to my light source is catching a little bit of a highlight. Okay, so one last thing I want to do, since this is just a quick sketch render, is I want to just accentuate this front edge so that it really feels like it's wrapping. And also just lightly fix a couple shadow areas that I think should be or could be shadowed. For example, here in the front, this nice big soft airbrush. Just to clean that all up. Okay, well, there you have it. How to just go from a sketch that you did on paper to something that we can take our iPad Pro here and take a picture, add some color, some tone, and you can see that perhaps this could be a presentation sketch. It could be just part of your ideation process, but with a little bit more time and a little bit more work, you could really either elevate the level of this or even create a variant of this design by just saving this as a comp in your set of sketches that you've done. So, can the iPad Pro do real work? Yes, it can, and it has been for me, and I've been really enjoying it. And hopefully you've been enjoying these videos. In fact, if you do, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's really easy. Just click that little button, or look for the big red button that says subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. We're 40,000 strong. Thank you so much for your support. And I look forward to continuing to do these videos. I really have fun doing them, and I love sharing what I know with all of you. If you'd like to follow me on Facebook, I'm at facebook.com/sketchaday or on Instagram at sketchaday.com. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Daily Sketches. I promise this year I will be better at Twitter. I'm going to give it a real shot. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Sketchaday.